Thank you very much for inviting me here today. I'm very impressed by the work that's going on in the university and the work that's going on with the practitioner community. And there's a lot of similarities between my university and in the fact that we feel that it's the role of academia to serve the practitioner community, to help understand what practice is about and to support it as it develops as a profession. What I've been asked to do is to look at boardroom activities in public relations. There's a lot of good news for public relations and what's happening in the world of work. Our time has come because organisations more than ever are defined by communications. And there's an increasing understanding that you are what people say about you. And in the age of social networks and the ability for networks of communication to interconnect across the world and within very discrete stakeholder communities, increasingly you are what people say about you. And some of the work that I've done with board level people indicate that chairmen of boards and chief executive officers understand increasingly the importance of public relations. So the opportunities for us have never been greater. They said that evaluation, which is one of our obsessions, was our problem. That it was us that felt we had to justify ourselves all the time, that we were sometimes coming up with spurious measures of evaluation. You know, here's the enormous set of press cuttings, doesn't that prove what a good contribution I'm making? They understand that that's nonsense, but they said that we understand that the contribution of communication is complex. We don't ask the HR manager to quantify and justify recruitment of good people. We know good people make us a better organisation. So why are you so obsessed with coming up with evaluations that don't actually give any real judgment of your performance?
CEOs who have public relations on their board. So this is already somebody who's obviously convinced that public relations is important. But they also have human relations on their board, and they also have finance on their board, and they also have marketing on their board for sure, if not research or other issues. And I just can't imagine any CEO not wanting to be able to benchmark the performance of his managers.
Just some other observations from these CEOs. They do see public relations as being at the heart of strategic planning for the reasons I mentioned earlier about being connected to external stakeholders and seeing issues. They think that on the whole public relations is underinvested.
I do have a view. I believe that our strategic role has two dimensions. One is the dimension in which we allow and facilitate and incentivize our colleagues from other functions in the organization to develop their own stakeholder relationship systems and methods. The other strategic function is what we might call the reflexive role, and that is to be able to interpret on behalf of the dominant coalition or the organization the expectations of the key stakeholder groups, and therefore to develop relationships with them, to listen to them with accuracy, or at least with intensity, and to be able to give the management of the organization this information before they make their business decisions.
Those two roles you mentioned actually bring us to the institutionalization model, because the way you keep your company in line with the values of the society and of different stakeholders is precisely the reflexive role. In the meantime, the way you institutionalized internally is the first one you mentioned, that is to help different functions to be in touch with their stakeholders.
It needs to be institutionalized in the sense that it needs to be recognized that although every single functional manager has the responsibility of his relationships with his stakeholders, the other needs to be institutionalized in the sense that the public relations manager, director needs to give a general picture of the situation of all the stakeholders. But it is necessary to recognize that the final word on stakeholders is of the functional manager and not of the public relations manager. Because if we institutionalize it the other way, then it creates an enormous amount of internal conflict.
Sort of consultancy. The interesting thing is that I found in one company, it is Illy Cafe, where the CCO has been invited not by the CEO, but by the other function managers to get into the board, because they felt the importance to have the CCO into the board level. And this is very interesting, because it hasn't to do with the large view of the CEO, but it has to do with the real need of the company.
What are the things that they're valued for? What are the things that the board expects them to have a grasp of and to be responsible for? So it is about stakeholder management, it's about issues management, environmental scanning, seeing the organisation in context, and crisis management.
I see there something missing, and that is reputation management. The second thing is that whether we should not be talking about crisis prevention rather than crisis management.
The thing is, what does it mean, reputation? This is the issue. If reputation is just another way of talking of image, then I agree with the critics on reputational approach. But if reputation is something really different that has to do with behaviors, then the thing changes deeply, because then management reputation means how to work within the board in order to, in a way, participate to the decisions that have to do with the strategic decision of the company that imply what the company do at different functional level, that has a communicational impact, but is a sort of second level, or is not a direct impact. To me, the reputation approach has to do with a radical change of the communication manager, of the CCO, that has to do with his entering into the board, where he, in a way, or she, has an impact on what the company do. Not just communicationally.
I think that reputation is strongly influenced by many factors which have nothing to do with communication. And therefore, I believe that reputation should be a final goal. You want your license, you can call it license to operate.
I want now to look at another side of the coin. Our knowledge and our skills are only one half of the story. It's about how we behave as individuals that's really important at board level.
So, thank you very much.